Okay, let's talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. I want to start off with Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman real quick because this is almost like a trilogy. So for those of you that listen to the podcast, you guys know my opinions on Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. And for those of you that don't, I'm going to mention it real quick. For those of you that haven't heard of the podcast, Filmmaker Mike and the Boys, there's a link in the description below, and then I'll have a link at the end of this video. So Man of Steel I thought was okay. It had its flaws that I kind of struggled with. There was a lot of very good things about it that I liked though. I watched it again recently and I liked it more this time than the first time I saw it in the theaters. Then we go to Batman vs. Superman, and that movie, it felt very rushed at times. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor was like the worst Lex Luthor I've ever seen, so that put a big damper on it for me. But later I saw the ultimate cut, Pinhead let me borrow it, and that changed my opinion a little bit. 30 extra minutes did help quite a bit, but it still carried on some of the issues I had before. You know, for those of you that don't know what happened, 2017 Justice League that was released in theaters, Zack Snyder had started, but because of a family tragedy, he had to step aside. Joss Whedon was brought in to then complete the film, which is why we saw tons of reshoots with the wonderful Henry Cavill mustache cover-up that they spent so much money on, and it looks absolutely horrible. So for Zack Snyder to get this full unaltered version on HBO Max is a big win. I mentioned multiple times in our podcast that I was hoping that this movie was going to be good. I mean, regardless of how I felt about it, because it will then pave a way for content like it. Like now we're seeing results of it through people demanding the Ayer cut, the director of Suicide Squad. Now people are wanting the restore the Snyderverse. They're wanting to see more of the Justice League, this supposed trilogy. So I had a feeling it was going to cause a wave of effects. I didn't think it would be to this extent. So I'm happy to see where it's going. Now granted, I didn't know any of this beforehand. I just thought it was like, okay, this was dumb. Zack Snyder really dropped the ball on the 2017 movie, blah 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 blah. But I didn't realize until I had met Mike, and he like really filled me in on everything that was going on, and it's pretty tragic. I mean, the fact that Zack had to leave the set because his daughter had committed suicide and all this horrible stuff, and then they brought in some director that they would hope would kind of like match their wants of like, you know, how well Marvel is doing and stuff like that. They want the same thing, and then he comes in and just completely butchers any vision that Zack Snyder had. So now we get the Zack Snyder cut on HBO Max, 4 hours of it, and like granted, I understand that's a long time, but you know, we watch shows so quickly now. I mean, what, 8 episodes? That's 8 hours of television that we don't mind watching, but for whatever reason people complain about a 4-hour movie that they can easily pause and continue watching later. I did that. I watched 2 hours, and then I watched an hour, and then I watched another hour later. So it didn't ruin the experience for me. I will say right off the bat, before I dive in, this is the best Zack Snyder movie I have ever seen. Before it was 300, amazing movie, but this just took it to a whole new level for me. It showed me his creativity as a writer. It showed his creativity as a director for me on a whole new level, and I am so thankful that this movie surprised me in so many ways. I wasn't expecting anything when I was gonna see this. I honestly didn't really like care to see it, but when I did watch it, I was so captivated, and those 4 hours like flew by. I enjoyed, for the most part, every minute. It slowed down here and there, but it never felt like it was dragging on or it was having to like continue to get my attention. I was never bored watching it. There was a couple things I struggled with. Some of the CGI had taken me out of it here and there, but it was very minor. You know, it just took me out for a second, and then I was pulled back in by the action and stuff. The excessive slow motion, I understand, but sometimes it felt like it was unneeded or like really like just too much. But again, I understand that it's Zack's style and very much his way of filmmaking, and I don't mind that in that sense. It never pulled me out of the moment. I just thought like, wow, this is just a lot of slow-mo. There was another time where I kind of got pulled out, actually 2 times, and most of it had to do with the Aquaman stuff. One of them was Amber Heard's British accent. I understand was supposed to be Atlantean, but it's because I watched Aquaman and she didn't have it there, and then I come in here and I watch this one and she has this accent. She's just so bad at it. It really bothered me and it took me out. And then the inconsistencies with Aquaman, like with them talking underwater, and then I noticed like some armor differences too, with also the fact that like Atlanteans seem to be able to go out of water and be okay. And then in the Aquaman theatrical release, they like some of them couldn't go out of water without suffocating. So like that was kind of confusing and like took me out of the story a little bit. But I was able to push that aside and just continue watching. This movie changed my opinion about multiple characters, and I'm so thankful for that because finally we have so much wonderful time to dive into these characters and how complex they are and how interesting they are. Like now I'm so happy that Flash got the story that he got because he was always my favorite in the animated Justice League. There is so much in this movie that reminds me of the Justice League animated series that I watched growing up, and to see Flash become the character that I always wanted him to see in this movie becomes a reality. We have Cyborg that like I honestly did not care about at all in the 2017 release, and then we come here and he's so fleshed out and he's very much taken back, but a great character overall. Like his story was so important to the Justice League. He truly is the heart of the crew, and I'm so thankful that he was able to have his full vision shown here in this movie. Cyborg and Flash's relationship is so wonderful. I like the comedic style with the stoic personality clashing, you know what I mean, but also like some like really well meshing together. Wonder Woman has some amazing moments that I was taken back and just in awe of. So there's just so much more time, and I'm so glad we got so much more time with these characters. And honestly, it is a movie that I am willing to watch over and over again. I definitely will be buying the hard copy, and this movie honestly made me want to buy the hard copy of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel. So that's an interesting change for me too. It's good to see Steppenwolf as this fully fleshed out villain who is actually a threat and has some really interesting reasons as to why he's doing what he's doing. And for those people that haven't even watched any of the other DC movies, it's okay to watch this movie. Like they explain so much. Granted, there's going to be some things you're not going to be so emotionally attached to compared to if you watched Batman vs. Superman and Wonder Woman and Man of Steel, but still you don't need those things because these characters are so fleshed out in this movie. It's so good to see that somebody that has never seen anything DC will be able to come in and understand who Darkseid is and what he wants and then what Steppenwolf wants to please Darkseid, and like to do these things that we never saw in the 2017 theatrical release, because in that version Steppenwolf was just so obsessed with the mother boxes and it was like mother. It was almost like a fetish for him. It was so bizarre. Like I from what I understood of the comic books, it was never like that, and to finally see the true comic book version of these characters fleshed out in this movie made me so happy. I have been dying for DC to get a win because I have thought that most of the DC films have just been okay, some of them really bad. I am so glad that this got a win. Like this is just so important. I don't foresee them doing a sequel and a trilogy for the Justice League because of how Warner Brothers has been acting regarding this whole thing. But I think if the fans push hard like they pushed hard for the Snyder Cut, I think they will eventually be able to get what they want. And now I'm part of that group to where I want a sequel. I really want to see the continuation of this because it was so good. The music also took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting this well of a score. I could see how it may have been odd, his music choices, because most of them actually had like lyrics in them. But for me, it helped a lot with the characterization and the character arcs and all that stuff. So I liked it a lot. His music choice was odd at first, but I did enjoy it in the end. Of course, with any Zack Snyder film, you're gonna have his incredible visuals and stylization. And honestly, I mean, that's probably why we all liked 300. I do like that there's lots of that in here, and especially with the Amazonians. Like, oh my gosh, what incredible filmmaking there. So yeah, overall, Zack Snyder's Justice League is amazing. His best film yet. I am so glad that he got to have this and the fans got what they wanted, and I am very much looking forward to the sequel, and I really hope it happens because now I want to know more. So that wraps up my review. I recommend you guys go watch it if you have HBO Max, and if you don't have HBO Max, I think it's worth the $15 if I'm being honest. I am genuinely curious though. I want to know what you guys thought of the movie. Please let me know in the comments what you guys thought. What didn't you like? What did you like? Or if you didn't like it at all, that's totally fine too. I'm gonna put a link in the description for AFSP for suicide prevention that allows you to purchase some Justice League merch that will support the cause. This is something that is very important to me, and I am so glad that the fans came together and did this in honor of Zack Snyder's daughter. On to the next review.